and doing the same thing there. So you're saying a pet company from the government, they'll take their pet company because maybe it's my sister's, really it's my sister's company. I'm giving them work. So how do you get away from these pet companies, and how do we get the work as First Nations? How do we say, put your pet company to the side, give us that set aside?
Well, Roy mentioned it kind of briefly about him talking to the provincial government, Aboriginal Affairs.
Just directly, just going straight to them.
Yeah, and so he talked to the Premier's office and mentioned the problem as far as, and he kept stressing that the Alberta government's, pet companies, coming on the reserve, not respecting an area that had burial grounds, and just coming there, digging up, and without notifying anybody too. And so they sort of got into little trouble there, that company. So anyway, then Roy talked to the federal government, actually the Liberal leader's office, and we mentioned all this stuff that was happening on the reserve. The Alberta government's pet companies coming on the reserve, doing all this and that, just leaving the business, the Indian business people on the reserve out, the ordinary people that have business, or they're not, they're leaving. They were pushing us out by the way they were operating as far as that money to do with the flood situation. So Roy talked to the Aboriginal Affairs again not too long ago, and he was told by the person he was talking to that the province more or less are kind of washing their hands from this, and they're giving the rest of the money that's remaining to Siksika, for them. And what we heard then was 49 million is left from 93 million. And then I'm talking to Yvonne. Maybe you can introduce yourself, Yvonne, and your friend.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yvonne is well, you told me.
Oh, hi. I got asked to come to this meeting because I don't even know what the meeting was about. There wasn't a lot of information given to me. And I talked to Linda. I'm from Siksika. So when the floods hit, I lived out here in Sutuna off and on for the last 10 years. When the floods hit, I was helping with getting dry goods, water, stuff like that shipped out to Siksika. So I started collecting stuff at Buffalo Run Golf Course, and we started shipping it out every night. And I started getting in contact with Sobeys, Culligan Water, and we started bringing stuff out to Siksika. And I got an official letter from my chief and council telling me, don't help. Your help is not wanted, because I'm like a whistleblower. And I have my name on an official letterhead from Siksika chief and council saying, Yvonne, you're kind of a radical. We don't want your help. We just want your products. We don't want your help. Your help is not needed. So at that time, I was blocked from my own community. But what was interesting is my partner, he was the manager of Stony flood mitigation when they needed to have somebody manage and head up the flood stuff. So he would tell me all the stuff that was going on. And Clark Builders, I totally believe that what you're saying is, how do we get it back to the Sarcee Builders, right? Mm-hmm. There was a company here called Sarcee Builders. Why don't we have more companies and stuff like that on the reserve, where we get our people in trades and saying, hey, to the young people, you can manage this. If there's a flood that's coming, there's housing, there's mold. I think Sutuna is very, very premier in this, because they make sure that all of the housing that's being built goes to their own people. And in Siksika, I've tried telling my council that. I've tried talking to my managers and telling them, follow Sutuna's lead. Get the work going back to the people. Don't be like Morley and kissing butts to Clark Builders and being afraid of them, and letting council get into the middle of it, where council's saying, oh, you know what, there's all this finances, why don't we just set up a meeting to talk about the finances? And then my partner would be there, and he'd be watching all of these meetings, and he would say, why are we going through Clark Builders? Why are we going through the Alberta government? Why is the Stoney administration and all three of their chiefs not dealing with each other? And we have these meetings for hours about all this money, but then you all get paid to go to those meetings and you get paid out of those budgets. So we're in reality, there's trailers sitting in Morley right now that are unoccupied, that are for flood victims. There's trailers in Siksika that are unoccupied, that are for flood victims. And what's sadder is that there's people in my community that still aren't home. And there's people that are home, but their houses were affected by the flood and they weren't fully fixed.
Exactly, yeah.
And this is where my frustration comes, because Sutina was so lucky. Like Redwood Meadows, yes, it was affected, the golf course was affected, but their disaster response team was exquisite. They were on point, they were in the community, they had their everything set up. They took care of elders first. They got it, and this is why I kept saying to my community, why are we not coordinating with Sutina? Why are we not following their lead? And it's almost like a sense of pride. I don't know. Like I always said that. Follow their lead. They're doing something good. Follow what they're doing. They totally took care of everybody. And Sutina minimally addressed it in a maximum way. And they reached out and they totally set the bar really high on how to respond for a flood. My community is still dealing with unaccountability because we now have a new chief and council from the floods. I've asked then what happened to the finances, like with housing, and the managers say, well, go to the province. I asked the province. The province says, oh, well, go to the technicians. It's entrusted into the technicians. And now rumors are is that all the money has been spent. Now there's this X amount left. But if all the monies are spent, why are people still not home? And I'm just one person. Person. Thank goodness I wasn't affected, but I still help. And that's why when I got called by Roy, because Roy and Linda have been helping feed people in the community over Christmas time. We did hampers, and then there's lots of people that got moved up here to the city, that some of them are still living in the hotels.
Yeah.
That the band is paying for it.
And you have people living in hotels and motels, don't you? Dev?
Yeah, the fire victims, the ones that are,
Well,
they had their homes burnt down, they're still living on a day-to-day basis.
why don't you introduce yourself back
I'm
there?
Kim, I'm from 6 I'm with Yvonne.
Okay.
Yeah, she just came.
Okay.
Oh, very good.